Hello there. We'd like to welcome you to the virtual kitchen table. We're Erin from Ever Learning, Ashley from Ashley as Mama and Storytime Shelves, and myself, Hayley from Taking a Kinder Path. We're gathering for conversations about family life and home education, particularly unschooling, which is sometimes known as self-directed learning, or as I like to call it, natural learning. We'll be sharing our experiences and ideas, learning as we go. We hope you'll pull a chair up to the table and join us.
Welcome back to the virtual kitchen table, and it's Erin here today and Ashley. Hello, Ashley.
Hi, Erin. How are you?
I'm pretty well. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. I'm kind of excited. I feel like it's timely to talk about our topic today, which is taking a kinder path to the holidays. And we're planning to do some decorating today. So I feel like it's always hard to know when to record, like the timing of recording these kinds of conversations, because, we want to be able to get them out at a time that makes sense. And so sometimes it feels like we're pre-holiday, or I think the first one we did, we were in the holidays already, kind of.
Yeah.
And we were like trying to, scrambling a little bit. But yeah, this feels perfect. And actually, and I think American Thanksgiving is this coming week. So, which is sort of, I think traditionally like their send off into the season. So yeah. I feel like we're probably in good timing. So we are basing, I was going to say loosely, but actually I think pretty strongly in lots of ways to Hayley's blog post, which has a similar name, Taking a Kinder Path to the Festivities for You, Your Children, and the Planet. And Hayley is so she just gives so many great resources. Mm-hmm. So we won't attempt to talk about all those resources, but we'll link that post. And then, as you said, Ashley, you kind of got lost in the links.
Yeah, it's such a good post. The post itself is so great, but there's so many links that Hayley has included in there that it's also, you can return to the post each year and kind of get something else from it. And I found myself down little rabbit holes that were really helpful. So there's lots there.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And then the even just her ideas, aside from her links, it's a solid post. Mm-hmm. There's a lot in here. So I think what we're going to do is kind of go down to the middle of it and talk about, she's outlined 4 steps as we kind of think about the holidays. And it just seems like there's lots there we can talk about. Everything from kind of planning, planning what you want as a family, to gifts, to keeping it simple, keeping it kind, looking after ourselves, and even thinking about our relationships within the season. But I think there's lots of little pieces that we can think about for each of those. So and I guess we should say too, we have done, I think for the past couple of years, we've done a holiday. I know we did one for sure with Pamela Riccia and Anna Brown, and it was about being intentional. Yeah. Holidays. So we will link that for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. So should we just hop into some of these ideas of Hayley's?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So, as we've talked about lots on here before, Hayley always has different ideas for joy lists. And so these are festive joy lists. And she's so good at putting things together concretely to just give you solid ideas. And so we've talked about this before, I think, where for some families that might mean gathering together and actually physically producing a list that you can keep up, that you can all be reminding yourselves of. And I'm thinking it could be per child, it could be as a family, it could be both. Mm-hmm. Right? It could be both. So there are lots of different variations there. But I'm thinking for some people too, it might just be a matter of having a conversation and then making a list, putting those things in your phone or in a notepad or whatever. Mm-hmm. find we've talked about the fact that I'm not much of a list maker. And so for me, I think it's more just having some of those conversations ahead of time. But with that, I think also, I don't know that my family automatically comes up with ideas. So not necessarily thinking like, okay, on Sunday evening, I'm going to ask everybody what they want for the holidays.
Yeah.
Like, I find there's almost a little bit of like, just kind of dropping ideas here or there, keeping our ears open for what they seem to be interested in. Even just kind of watching the vibe or reaction when something is coming up or somebody else suggests something. So I do think it's also about being really like observant and just observant and kind of open to what different people are interested in. Like I don't know house, but
yeah, I know we've talked about these before, and I will mention too, actually, because I have it pulled up right now on Hayley's post, that especially if someone's maybe new to, they like the sounds of a joy list and they're new to it. She has my step-by-step guide to making a festive joy list, and then it looks like she also has a printable too. And I know I've gone to Hayley's blog before when joy lists were kind of new to us. And it even got me thinking a little bit about what that would have looked like when my kids were really young, because it's just been the past, I don't know, like good few years now that we've used joy lists. But when they were really little, I think you could definitely still do a joy list of some sort or in some way. When you said how like observing, taking the time to observe, I think about how that probably would have been that's probably what I did do. I just didn't put it into a joy list at the time when they were younger. But just really ahead of time thinking about, what are the kids really into? And sometimes the kids or the whole family are into like the same things. But I find from our experience, lots of times it's different things that they're into. And then the other thing while you were talking that I thought about with joy lists that we've maybe talked about before, but I wonder if it's like even more meaningful or important to do around the holiday season when things easily get busy and stuff. I think one thing that kind of practicing this joy list or using it as a tool, even if it feels like, because I know sometimes I feel this way where I'm like, I don't even know that I got much out of that as far as like ideas and like feedback. But just the act of going to our kids and asking them in whatever way that looks like you said, it can be so many different ways, but just inviting them to share their thoughts and ideas and give input on like, what do you want to do this holiday season? What do you want it to feel like? Do you want me to write a list of things down? Like just going to our kids. And again, this would be experience different for them at different ages. But I think that in itself is really meaningful for kids to know that they're very much included in having say in what the family does around the holidays. I know my youngest gets really excited with different ideas all throughout the year, but especially around the holidays of like, well, we could do this and we could do that. And if I didn't go to him and ask, I think he would feel a little bit hurt, or at least maybe he wouldn't notice it. But I think when I do go to him, he's ready a lot of times when it's specific to holiday time anyway. But yeah, I think even just using that as a tool is a really great way to make the kids feel included and feel like they really get to contribute, and that goes for things that they want to do, but also things that they're not interested in. And then as we mentioned before, using joy lists, I have found it really helpful to, so once I get an idea of, okay, this is what this kid's interested in, this kid's interested in this, but not interested in these things. And then here's what I'm willing to do or not interested in or interested in. And then including my husband and stuff is like figuring out how it fits together. So I often will, I'll call it a joy list, but I'm also very much like looking at the month of December, but also a little bit of November, maybe even into the new year. And I've got the calendar at some point, whether the kids are with me for that or not, because I need to see how it fits together. And just that's where I get intentional around making plans and trying to fit in realistically the things that they've mentioned. Or if someone doesn't want to do something, is it possible to leave them at home with someone, or who's taking this kid to, like, so you get into the logistics. But I feel like when you take time to do that, and I mean, I don't spend hours doing this, but I just take a bit of time to kind of figure some things out, so that it keeps it real. Like it means that we're more likely to get to the things we want to get to. But it also lets me visualize, is this too much? Because what I'm trying to get to is, I also want to keep it slow for our family, right? Like, I know that, well, it's funny, for one kid, I have to make sure it's not too slow. I have to make sure there's enough. And then for another kid, I have to make sure, and for myself, I have to make sure it's still slow in many moments. And having the calendar really lets me kind of balance all that out. So I just wanted to mention that I think joy lists are like a really good tool for that as well. It hasn't been my experience where it's just like, okay, now I know what everybody wants to do. I can also take the time to be like, how do I make it a reality as best as I can without like kind of compromising the feel that we're all going for? Because ideas can be great, but then when you get through all your ideas, you might be absolutely exhausted. And maybe you wouldn't have changed that, but maybe you would look back and go, and next year I might do that a little bit differently. So that was a lot I just threw at you, but that's what came up for me.
I love it. And like, yeah, now I have all these thoughts as always, right? No, and I think what I like about the way that Hayley talks about lists of any kind is she talks about them because she's a list maker, right?
Mm-hmm.
She talks about them as a menu though. And
Yeah.
that is really key because this time of year can be busy already. And it's the thing is, it's not just about the things that we choose to put on our list. There's extended family stuff maybe. There might be, parties happening with different things that kids are involved in. So you are trying to kind of amalgamate stuff. And I think that idea that it really is a menu rather than a list, and maybe that's helpful to look, I mean, it is a list. It's a list of ideas, and it's kind of like a menu that we can choose from. And so maybe, like, as I'm saying this, like maybe that's an interesting thing to say to kids as we're generating ideas. Just, the reality of time, the reality of money, the reality, as you said, of like different personalities in the family. And so maybe somebody's willing to compromise for two high energy things, but throwing a third one in that week is not, or maybe it's you as the you're like, like I can do this and this, but I'm probably going to be out of steam to do this then, on the weekend. Yeah. So even coming from that perspective, that like a joy list, especially a festive one, especially this time of year, because it's also a bit time sensitive, right? So it's a little bit different than making maybe a joy list in September or for the summertime or something like that. But just having that conversation about like, this is like an opportunity to brainstorm. Mm-hmm. And as you said, and then maybe there's stuff that's going to come up that they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. I know I kind of like this idea. It kind of gives us, it's something we can do for ourselves, which is something I like too. It's like everybody in the family could be thinking about what would they like to do, what would be on their joy list. But inevitably things also come to my head that I'm like, I think I don't really want to do that. Or we could let go of this. So it really is like an exercise in like self-reflection kind of.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. And planning too, right? Like I'm just thinking back as you're talking, maybe I had some experiences growing up doing this with my family in a way. But I don't really recall, being part of kind of like the planning process. So I'm thinking like as our kids get older, if this is just kind of their normal experience of like figuring out and really taking time to reflect on what do we want, what do we don't want, what is it going to feel like, I think that could be helpful for them to, like, as they get older, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I was thinking of, I can't remember what you said that made me think this, but I'm just thinking about how I have felt as a parent around the holiday season, but there's other points in the year too where you'd feel this way, where you kind of have all these like ideas, right? And these like, I have my family now. My kids are going to only be small at this time. And it's such a, some people are into the holiday season more than other people, of course. But I think we can get just feel like I want to do all the things. And I totally get that, right? Like you're excited and you want your kids to experience all the things. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But like you said, there's only so much time. So I think like that reminder, which we've mentioned this before, but I don't know if we've mentioned it around the holiday season, of just being like, but I know you want to make the most of every season, but I just like to think as parents, because there are so many opportunities, like there's so many things you can go and take your kids to do, or all the crafts, like all the holiday crafts you can do at home with your kids, like, or all the Christmas books. Like there's so many things that I like to think like the joy lists allow us to be like, well, what do we want to do this year? Because there's only so much time, there's only so much energy. So it's kind of like taking the pressure off, maybe, to remind ourselves that we can, we can probably get to some of these things next year. What do we, and we might talk about traditions today, right? So that's what's coming to mind right now. What as a family do we want to commit to? Or, there's always flexibility, but is there something or a couple things we want to do every single year? Are there some things we want to do some years? So I'm just thinking about that pressure that I think parents can almost even put on themselves around this time of year, to be like, I want to make it as magical as possible. And it's like, it will be magical, right? Like that's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think too, so when I was a kid, I loved the Christmas season, loved it. And I loved it festively, but even as a young child, I really loved it from like a sacred perspective, like a spiritual perspective.
Yeah.
So when I was kind of like coming into my like very early adulthood, because I started having kids relatively young in my adulthood, right? So I didn't have very many years of this, but I remember kind of like having just really enjoying those years of being able to just like savor the different things, whether they were festive, whether they were spiritual. Like it was just it was nice. And then as you said, you have kids and you want to provide these opportunities. And I'm also going to say sometimes there's some kind of, we can talk about whether they're really have tos or not, but to some degree, you other people want to see your child at Christmas, and there's just all these things, right? There's stuff that comes up. And so then I kind of got to a point I realized where I felt like I had lost the season for myself, and not just because of my children's activities, but even like my husband's work parties, like there would be an adult work party, and then they would have another kids party for his work. And it just felt, and then as my kids got into some activities, not so much around the sports, I guess, but around stuff like choir, like I found like those activities had Christmas parties, and for Santa you had to, like there was a lot of stuff, right? Yeah. And so all of a sudden it became like, it did become just getting through. And there were expectations for each of those things. Like, as a parent, everybody would bring food, and it's not like those things are enjoyable to a degree, they're enjoyable. And it was all part of experiences for my kids for sure. But I started I think I might've talked about this last time, really acknowledging like the 12 days of Christmas kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So that I didn't feel, this whole Christmas frenzied prep, the 4 or 5 weeks leading up to Christmas, I could just focus on, kind of being there for those things. Now the type of work that I'm in, I get invited to a lot of individual Christmas parties and events. And so the only way that I can do that and not feel overwhelmed by it is if I give myself a little bit of space afterward when everyone's kind of decompressing anyway, right? So I've heard a lot of people say this, that they love that week between Christmas and New Year's. Yeah. And I even just let myself go a little bit further. So it's just been really nice, because that's when I know, like, I might get a chance to sit down at the piano and play Christmas song, that's just stuff that I was missing. Or even just a chance, if you get a new book for Christmas, and just savoring like those kinds of things, rather than like the prep, the lead up, lead up. So I think, that's just something I do for myself. I don't know that that's anything my kids have taken on, but we can offer that idea, I think. I mean, it doesn't have to be it might be fun to call it the 12 days of Christmas, but you don't have to do that. You could structure it however you want, whatever holiday you're celebrating. It can just be the idea that we don't have to pack everything in to, I don't know, this very hectic period of time.
Yeah, I think so many people talk about how it can be such a hectic time, right? Like it seems to happen so easily to families, and maybe just to everyone. Yeah, because there's people who want to see you, you want to see people. There's so many different activities to choose from. But then, of course, there are those like individual things that we really get a lot of joy out of that can kind of get pushed to the side pretty easily because the other things are great too, but there's only so much time. So I really like. And I just also, as you're talking about it, I'm thinking like, what a great thing to model for our kids or just for anybody else, right? It's almost like when I see someone doing something like that, it gives me permission to do something like that for myself. So yeah, it just makes me think about how taking that time to think, what do I want the holiday season to feel like for me? Because we're very good at thinking about what do we want the holiday season to feel like for everybody else. What do I want it to feel like for me? That obviously will benefit us, but I think it benefits those around us too, because we're just going to be feeling better if we're reading the book that we really want to read. Or, I mean, I'm thinking about watercolor painting because I didn't watercolor paint for a couple weeks, and usually I do it pretty regularly now. And I sat down and I did it yesterday, and I put music on and I did it for less than an hour, and I felt so good afterwards. And I know that that's how it makes me feel, but I chose other things I enjoy, like reading and puzzles the last couple of weeks. So I didn't get to the watercolor. So it was a reminder to me, it is well worth prioritizing watercolor painting, because it really just makes me feel like it's very good for my mental well-being. And in thinking about watercolor painting, I love doing it around Christmas because I don't feel like watercolor painting Christmas things at other times of the year, really. Like I enjoy it during the holiday season. But with it being so hectic and busy, it would be easy for me to not get to that. So just kind of making that decision ahead of time and saying, that's something I really want to make sure I sit down and do. And, whether that's marking it down on the calendar or just when I get the time, I'm not choosing other things. I'm choosing that because of how it makes me feel and just being really intentional about that. And I really liked what you said about like extending it past the holiday season, like a little bit longer than what maybe most people would do, because why not? Like, why, if we can do that, why not take that opportunity? So yeah, lots of good stuff.
And like what comes to mind, Ashley, is like protecting our space and our time. Yeah. There's just something about, and so that, I'm thinking about like, if I had something I was doing, like reading a new book or working on something, like I don't do watercolor, but that, it's just something that I wanted to do for myself. And I think about like that week leading up to New Year's and how often, it's almost like right after, it depends what day of the week, it falls on. But I find sometimes that day after New Year's, it's like, and I guess I'm more thinking work, but not necessarily just work, even maybe like invitations from people, almost like people are like back into, like I can think of times where it's like almost the morning of January 2nd, I'm getting like, and so just again, and this I think is why the joy list allows us some planning time and some preparation, but even just thinking about like how we want to, I don't know, like it just feels jarring to me when I've said I'm giving myself this time after Christmas and then people are like, okay, it's technically not, New Year's Day is a holiday, I guess, right? So then it's like January 2nd, we're back in, and, are there ways that I can like ease back into things? And, or even if my kids are getting back into the zone of regular stuff, or, I do maybe need to work that next day after New Year's. Like, how can I still do that with like a different energy that still protects a little bit of time in the evening or whatever, that I don't need to, like, you can ease into things without, and still kind of hold on to some of the things you were wanting to do.
Yeah.
But then also recognize that there are people in my family who are not feeling the same way, and they're like, okay, we're done now.
Yeah.
We've just had new, like, you know what I mean? We've had our holiday season. We're good. I want to get back to basketball. I want to get, and then that's, I guess, where so much of what we talk about, figuring out what makes sense for everybody.
Yeah.
Which, is up, it's not that we can always be doing everything that we want to be doing, but it's just worth protecting pieces of that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm thinking about the joyless and how you're kind of like talking about them in that way too, I'm thinking about that transition. So like transitioning kind of out of the holiday season,
Right.
But then I'm thinking about you're transitioning into the remainder of a cold season where we are. And that feels different for people too. So yeah, like as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about when I was at the library the other day, I ended up just spontaneously picking up some books around that idea of like cozy comfort. I can't think of which ones I grabbed, but the idea of like, okay, we're going into the darker months, the colder months. What do I want that to feel like? Because I know that that can feel like a tough time. And I'm thinking about people who do celebrate, they have a holiday season during the darker, colder time, but there's Christmas lights and there's singing and there's a lot of joyous things happening around us. And then that comes to an end and we're left with a lot of the cold, darker, months left of winter where we are. And that feels different for different people. Some people are really into winter activities. So maybe they missed that hockey was, I don't know if hockey takes a break during the holiday season, but I get what you're saying. Actually, hockey might not stop. But yeah, some people, we all just have such different personalities and different experiences. So I think it is also really helpful. Anytime I do a joy list with my family, it's an opportunity for ourselves and to like reflect on what do I need, what do I want, because that matters. But also what other people in my family or in my circle want and need might be very different than me, and that matters just as much. So I think it really is just such a really, really great, I don't know, I keep thinking of it today as like a tool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's such a good point too about the season. The whole thing about having lights, even about the idea that Christmas is celebrated when it is based on that shortest day of the year. It's all seasonal. Yeah. Originally, it's all seasonal. So I do think about that, like, abruptly the radio will stop playing seasonal music, or people will take, their lights down. It's which is fine. I think I've started to be just more open to, we all probably grow up with certain ideas about you don't leave your lights up too long or you don't take them down too soon. Like I think every family has their thing, right? When you can do whatever. And so now I'm just like, yeah, maybe people, it just helps them mentally to have their lights on right through the winter.
Yeah.
And just trying to like model that a little bit in the way that my husband will be a big one to talk about the hydro people are using. I'm like, well,
that's fair.
We don't know, we don't know what the situation is. It's just, I think just modeling, like there's so many different ways of thinking about things. And yeah, it is interesting just to think about how it might be helpful to extend that kind of light end of things.
Yeah.
Whether that's lighting, whether it's candles, whatever.
Yeah, it could be so many different things, right?
Yeah.
Like it could be lots of different things. What comes to my mind is just stuff that kind of resonates with me, but I like that. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking about, it's a great opportunity to think about kind of like trusting or just knowing that people do things usually for a reason, and we often don't know what that reason is. Within our family, we have more ideas around that, but yeah, with like neighbors and stuff. Of course, it's also fair to think about what our own thoughts and feelings and opinions of those things are too.
Yeah.
But it is, the joy lists, again, they just come back to really understanding that we're all different and we all, like, different things bring us joy. And it's, I think, really beneficial to everyone to take time all throughout the year. And we've talked about that, but especially during times of the year, even like back to school season, right? When all those things start to amp up again, that's another time of the year where I find I really fall back to like, let's take some time to do our joy list, and maybe they don't even change much, but often they do because of the different season. So,
well, and I think it's like another good opportunity to, I mean, not that our topic is about critical thinking, but I feel like the holidays is another really good time. It's a really good opportunity as families who are spending time together, who are making decisions in, collectively, right? Like it's just, there's so much there to those conversations, just around different ways that different people do things, different traditions. I think I was sharing with you briefly that when I came home last night, I'd been out seeing a friend, and my son was sharing with me that he and his fiance had kind of decided that when they had kids, they were going to maybe go to Santa Claus parades and that kind of thing. Who knows, maybe get pictures, whatever, but they weren't going to actively kind of do Santa, so to speak. And it just kind of led into this, I don't know, it's just a really interesting conversation because we also didn't do Santa. I think I had written something, I think last year about Santa or not. And it was just nice to come from a perspective of like, not like agreeing or disagreeing, but just like talking about different ways of thinking about it. And how, I mean, I shared in that blog post that I wrote, how my husband and I came from very different perspectives on it, where he really felt strongly about not kind of perpetuating this idea of Santa. And it had been such a big part of my childhood and had been done in a very like just fun and well-meaning way. And so it was hard for me to understand his perspective. And he really had a hard time seeing mine. Like, what do you mean this was a big part of your life? Like, it just didn't make sense to him, right? And anyway, we ended up having this conversation that part of what led to our decision not to kind of actively, quote, do Santa was the idea that it seemed more important to my husband not to than it did to me to go ahead with it. But I think we probably met in the middle somewhere, in that I still took the kids to the parade every year. Like, we still did we weren't like anti-Santa.
Right.
We just weren't creating this idea. We weren't, but the other thing that I was saying to my one son is that my oldest son, who wasn't here for this conversation, but like, I think also our child's personality dictates a little bit about how we do things. So for him, I mean, I would have had to be very actively making up continuous stories to do the Santa thing. He just wouldn't have followed along with that. He was just very much kind of like a realist at a really young age, and it wouldn't have flown. So
right.
The other thing too is that also made my decision a little bit easier. So I'm kind of off track with joy lists, but I think where I was going with that was just that when we're planning for things, even bigger picture things, this opportunity to be like just talking about stuff, not coming in with like, you shouldn't decorate before December 15th, or you should have it's just an opportunity to always be talking about how different things work for different people. We can always change our minds a little bit with stuff, maybe not Santa, but maybe, but there's just different. I just think it's such a good opportunity, the holiday season, really, to talk about all kinds of different things, not in like an intense, we're going to like solve the, but just like stuff comes up.
Yeah.
Literally stuff comes up, and there's just an opportunity to reflect.
Yeah.
Or reflect about somebody else that you know and how they do things.
Yeah. I think it's a great time to choose, what do we want to do as a family, right? And not to say that we're necessarily going to commit to always doing it, but what feels good to us right now, what makes sense to all of us right now, rather than being like, well, this is what we've always done, or this is what it was like for me growing up. Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up Santa, because I think it is such a it's such a hot topic these years for parents. But it's great, right? Because yeah, I feel like parents are taking the time, sometimes before they even become parents, to really put thought into this and recognize that there's choice. And what else do I want to say about that? Because I'm glad you brought it up. And Santa's a big one, but you could get into it with like lots of different Christmas things, right? Like whether you go to the parade or not. Oh, and like what you said about your kids' different personalities, that is a big factor in the choices that you're making. And I think recognizing that their choices allows us to be more flexible as parents, right? So just being open and doing maybe the inner work to help you figure out, okay, if this is hard for me, why is it hard for me? Because there's reasons we have those feelings, and that's valid. But it's okay to, question things and be curious, and just and like I know you've kind of mentioned this, which I think it's helpful, is that like this can look so different in all the different families. Like it really isn't. I don't think my family's ever sat down and had a conversation. Like tonight at dinner, we're going to have a conversation about what do we want our Christmas to look like. I mean, you could do that, and that might work for some families. That's not. It's been a very casual thing, and I probably spend the most amount of time thinking about it compared to the rest of my family.
I bet you do. Yeah.
Oh yes. Right. The fact that we're having this conversation, my husband would probably even be like, or the kids especially would be like, what? You and Aaron talked about that for how long? But I think it's a really great thing. And I think Santa is a big one. And I'll just quickly share how I guess I was in a similar situation as you when we had our kids. But my husband wanted to do the whole Santa thing. We both grew up having similar Christmas experiences, I would say. And we both grew up similar to you, I think, with the idea of Santa. It was like a fun thing. And it just was part of Christmas. But when I did have my first, I probably came across something, because I feel like it's been a bit of a hot topic for quite a while now, among like the parenting world. And I really thought something about, I guess, like, I don't know how else to put it, but like lying about Santa, it just didn't sit right with me, even though I didn't have any hard feelings about growing up with the idea of Santa and then finding out, about Santa at some point. But I don't know, there's something about, I've just felt very strongly about always being very honest and open, and like building the trust with my kids. Like I just felt that early on. So when this came up, I was like, ooh, I don't know, something I'd almost rather not. And just, we can still play with the idea, but we can be honest about it still. But my husband was worried that would really take away from their Christmas. So we really had to take time to, and though I guess our compromise was, and with my oldest personality, it was more so I didn't have to do convincing. Like both my kids, but especially my eldest, was a fan of Santa from the beginning. Okay. So I didn't have to, it's just Santa was around. And so, okay, Santa's a thing. So that made it easier for me. And I just kind of let my husband know, okay, we'll do Santa. But like, I'm only going into it so much. And the first time I'm asked about Santa, I will be giving an honest answer.
Right.
Which I think made him nervous, because he was like, well, what age could that happen at? But it didn't happen until my oldest was older. And then once the eldest knew, the younger soon found out afterwards. And it was all fine. It was okay. But I guess that's all I'll share. Because but I do think, I'm glad you brought it up, because I think that all those things that could be on the joy list, like those things get brought up, and like some things might feel more important to some people than other people. And I just like the idea of being flexible. And I just keep coming back to like, and we're at the beginning, because as we're recording this, we're not quite yet into the holiday season. We're just starting to talk about it. But I think by having the joy list, it actually also helps me to start thinking about this stuff maybe a little bit earlier, whereas previous years I might have kind of more so been in the, okay, the holidays are here, what are we doing? On top of the things that you know, that we're going to do, like getting together with family. Like, what are the extra things that we're going to do? And I really like the way the holiday seasons feel now when I've taken the time to start slowly thinking about that as we lead into, I mean, what's today? We're very much middle of November as we record. So it doesn't feel too early to me, but I wouldn't want to start thinking about this stuff too much later.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. This is why this felt like the perfect kind of weekend. I would have been like not ready last weekend, but I just feel like it's good to, well, and this piece about the personalities. So I just want to go back to this. I mean, we're talking about the Santa thing, but I guess we could think about it for other things as well. But
yeah.
So I remember finding out very distinctly that Santa wasn't real. And I kind of go through the steps of how that happened in my blog post, because it's so clear to me. And I did feel, I think I felt not duped in a, not like lied to. I think I felt a bit embarrassed. Like it was like, oh, I've been, you know. And so I think, and I don't know whether I mentioned it in the post or not, but I didn't feel any anger at my parents. I actually had one grandfather who probably perpetuated it. I mean, he would be taking us outside on Christmas Eve. I'm sure I saw lights in the sky. Like it's the whole thing. And, you know, but just so it came from such a good place.
Yeah.
I don't, and I mean, that's not going to make the difference to all kids, but for me, I didn't, I don't feel any anger or any trauma about it. But even that feeling of being embarrassed that I hadn't realized, for me, I think the magic of it was kind of like still worth it for me.
Yes.
Right? But not for everybody. So I have a close relative, when they told their child, or their child came to them, like their child was angry.
Yeah.
They were not happy. And I think it wasn't worth it for them. So I think the other thing is too, we just don't know for sure. We have to kind of go with what we think is best in the moment. And I do think that, and maybe, so, I mean, we're talking about it in the context of Santa, but I think we could broaden it to almost anything, because I think we have this idea of like joy. I mean, we're talking about the joyless joy and magic. Like we hear a lot about this, making things magical. And sometimes, you know, sometimes we make a decision or we do something and it doesn't feel quite as magical, but it's like, it's okay. Like, so I would say if I compare my children, so we've done stockings. We've always done stockings, even though we didn't do Santa, we've done stockings. We've read the night before Christmas. We've gone to the parades. We've done all of that. So as I said, we haven't been anti-Santa, but we just haven't, you know, it's kind of a fun fable. Like it's like that. And I mean, there's some basis on a real historical figure. So we've looked into that, the generosity, all of that. It's quite a lovely idea.
Yeah.
So do I think that my kids' Christmas Eves and Christmas mornings have been as, quote, magical as mine? I don't.
Okay.
I just want to feel. They will tell you they've missed nothing.
I did not think you were going to say that.
What did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say that they're just as magical.
No, I don't think so. But they don't realize it.
Okay.
So they think like, and they will adamantly say, because I think they got sick of people saying to them, oh, you missed all the fun. That's so mean of your parents.
Yeah.
Right. So they're very like defensive of like, no, we had, you know, we got gifts, we did other things, and we, you know, they're very like adamant that they've always enjoyed Christmas and the holiday season in general. And so it's only because I think I had the other experience.
You can compare.
I can compare myself on Christmas Eve versus my kids.
Yeah.
But all of that to say, would I do it differently? I wouldn't. Because again, I have to work in partnership with my husband.
Yeah.
And I had to work with what my oldest child's personality was.
Yeah.
It really wasn't going to work. It would have been for him, you know? So I think that, where am I going with this? We can't, like, we're just not going to have everything that we had, and then everything that our spouse had and everything that makes sense for every single child we have. Like, it's not, we don't need to look for like perfection, is what
No.
yeah. So.
I love that so much, because I think it really highlights to this idea that we touched on maybe before we started recording, but that we all experience things differently anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So your eldest might, if you had gone the Santa route, your eldest probably, from the sounds of it, wouldn't have experienced it quite the way you did anyway.
That's such a good point.
Right? Like, we have our kids, and they're different than we are. So I understand wanting to recreate something for our kids, but that doesn't guarantee that they're going to have that same feeling or experience anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I thought of too, and what I've done with my kids with the whole Santa thing specifically, is I've just talked about it with them. It got brought up not long ago, and they kind of asked why we did the Santa thing. And I just told them kind of what I shared here is, how we came to the decision and how we felt about it. And I think it's another opportunity to share with our kids that we're just humans trying to make the best choices in the moment as well. And, if we upset them or hurt them in the process, that our intentions were good, and they're allowed to make their own choices if one day they have kids, and good luck.
Yeah,
but you can talk about it.
Yeah, such a good point that you make, Ashley. I think you're right. My oldest would not, I don't think, have had the same experience that I had. I do feel sad I feel a little bit for my second youngest son, because he was he was a superhero kid.
Okay.
He loved like characters and superheroes. But you know what? Again, I think I just want to be honest about that, because it just is what it is.
Yeah.
When you also can't, when you have a family with a few different people in it, you can't, you just have to, you do the best you can for everybody, right? So I don't say that because I think anybody's doing anything wrong by not, I probably, if I had to do it again, I would do it the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm saying that we have, it doesn't hurt to be honest that sometimes there's there's pros and cons to everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I think, because parents do feel so much pressure around the holidays, maybe around the whole Santa thing, is that, and thankfully I'm seeing people talk about this and write about this, is that kind of around, what do we really want to give our kids during the holiday season? And it's a comfortable, safe, happy, I'm doing quotation marks, but they want to be together, and they want to have their needs met, and they want to experience joy. And it can just look so many different ways, that I think if parents go into the holiday season being open and just paying attention to who's in the family and those differences, that, and it's like you said, it's not about making it perfect. Some holiday seasons can be really tough, but they can also be really tough with joy. They can be really tough. I kind of lost my train of thought there. I had another example, but it's not, it's unrealistic, I think, to think that we can plan the most ideal holiday season or Christmas every year. But just being kind of more realistic and practical is just slowing down, taking the time to be like, what can we make work this holiday season? And it's usually the small things, right? It's not, for the most part, it's all going to be okay, whether you do Santa or not.
Right.
Well, and you know what? This probably actually is and I don't want to cut you off, so if you have more to share about it, but I'm just thinking too, I think the next thing we were going to talk about is gifts, which I feel really ties into that, because parents can feel a lot of pressure too about, I'm thinking specifically about shopping for Christmas gifts for our kids. But, and same thing, right? You can try your best. But I don't want to jump to that too quickly. I just
no, I think it would be good. I have a couple more thoughts about I don't know whether to put them here or not, because we've now been talking about joy lists for a really long time, and Hayley has 3 or 4 other.
So it'll all tie together.
I'll come back to it. It'll probably fit in somewhere else, but it's just around the concept of joy. But anyway, let's move on to gifts, because I think we're
It's up to you. If you want to share, you go for it.
No, I think we'll wait.
Okay.
Let it remind me to come back. But yeah, so do you want to, so the gift thing, like I obviously I always have thoughts about this stuff, especially the stuff Hayley writes, but do you have anything that you want to start with around gifts?
I mean, I guess I can start by just sharing what is coming up for me this holiday season. Like I first want to, I guess, say I try not to put too much focus on gifts around the holidays, because I don't think that that's what the most meaningful things, after when someone's or growing up and thinking back to the holiday season, often we forget what we got for Christmas, right? Like we might remember a couple key gifts or something, but I try not to focus too much on gifts. But at the same time, we do buy gifts for our kids and for, other family members and stuff. And I do find myself thinking a lot. My husband would say that I think way too much about this stuff, but I also enjoy it. It's kind of connected back to when I think about what to strew for the kids. I really enjoy paying attention to what they're interested in. What I think that, and I do think about what they'll be excited to open up at Christmas morning. We do stockings too, so thinking about those as well and what they would get excited for. But more so, I think about what gifts are they asking for, or could I gift to them that they will really get like a lot of joy or use out of throughout the year. So I don't know if this is the right time. I had said to you before we started recording, like one thing that's coming up for me. So my two are 12 and 9 right now. We're not completely out of like the toy stage, but we've definitely moved away from that quite a bit. And so, but they're still young. So we're kind of at that in-between stage. And so I have, like, just as an example, like this year I've thought, I think the kids could get a lot of, like, really enjoy having like a full-size keyboard. Like we used to have like a small keyboard that was like passed on to us, like the neighbors passed it on to us when their kids were done with it. It was just a small keyboard. And so it couldn't do a lot, but they used it a lot, right? Like something that makes noise and you can learn how to play some stuff. And then it died, and we haven't had it for, I don't know, a couple years now, probably. And I do also remember we got, like, my sisters and I, a full-size keyboard one year for Christmas, which I think at least one of us might have asked for, but I'm not sure. But I remember I was very excited Christmas morning seeing that. So maybe that's playing into this idea as well. But I feel like it's both. My kids have not asked for this. My kids have not said that they want a keyboard. But I'm just thinking, we would maybe buy a secondhand keyboard. So I'm not thinking that we would have to necessarily spend a whole lot on this, but it's also not something really small. It takes up space. So I kind of automatically think like, well, what a great Christmas gift that could be. But again, they haven't asked for that. And I'm kind of like, okay. And then the other piece to this that kind of matters, I guess, is that both kids, but especially my 12-year-old, they don't have much of a wish list. Like they're not asking for much either. So I'm like, do I just gift them a relatively big Christmas gift that they haven't asked for, assuming that they will, even if they're not super pumped about it Christmas morning, throughout the year, they'll get a lot of use out of? I don't know. I'm I'm explaining this as if it's this huge dramatic thing. And it's obviously not. It's not that important. But in just thinking about gifts, I feel like I haven't had this in previous years, really. Like when they were younger, they had at least a list of 5 things, if not more, that we could pick from. And now, without much of a list, no list for my oldest one yet, I'm just kind of like, I wonder what other people, and thinking about their personalities, right? Like, this could really tick some kids off, right? My sister, when she got stuff that she didn't ask for on her list, and if some things were not covered on the list, that was really hard for her. So thinking about the different personalities too. And yeah, that's kind of, I'll leave it there for now. That's one of the things that's kind of coming up around gifts this season for me.
Well, ages are, that is a super good point about that age in between kids knowing what they want, like having all these ideas of what they want. But then also at those younger ages, even if you, well, maybe not for your sister, but for often if you buy a present, like a toy of any kind or just something, they're pretty open, like they're pretty appreciative of like just new stuff, right? New things to do. But as kids get older and their interests are more defined and it's harder, isn't it? It's hard to, yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
And I should mention I don't remember this being my sister's experience when she was little, but probably as more so a teenager, I think. So that might be a bit more of a common experience as they get older. I should just mention that. I don't think she won't probably listen anyway, but I don't mean to be hard on her. I just mean that, everyone has different personalities and like the love language, right? Like how we receive gifts, I think it's just unique to who we are.
And it's not a bad thing to be disappointed. It just is.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I have this idea of like kids should feel this way, or they should be grateful for. I mean, the fact is they feel, they can kind of work with some messaging to over time as they mature to help with their reaction to things.
Yeah.
But they can't. If you tend to be disappointed because you have things on your list.
Yeah.
Like my daughter's very much like that. I mean, she's 20 now, so it's not like she was, it's not that she never was like upset, but it was like, very systematically thinking about what would make sense, right? And I think like it's something that I think about the idea of a gift because, whether a gift is something that you give somebody because they've asked for it and put it on a list, but also the role of giving as the giver, seeing something and it reminds you of somebody, and that's maybe what you're talking about, like even that strewing link.
Yeah.
Exciting to think, oh, they might not even know about this, but when I see this, it reminds me of this person. And I could so I think like whether it's other people in our lives or whether it's our kids, I'm often just like thinking of kind of where the balance lies around that. And I mean, it can be both.
Yeah.
Depending on how many gifts you can or do give. It can
right.
We tend to be, I have to say we're pretty gifty, which is strange because I'm not at any other time of the year much of a gift giver. Like it's not my natural thing.
Right.
To buy gifts, and I'm not someone who's always hoping to receive a gift. Like I'm just not very gifty. It's not my love language or my way of thinking about things. But I think, again, this is like doing things in different ways, because I feel like the idea of kids getting a lot of things at Christmas is kind of, it's not looked very well upon in some ways. Like, even though it's, in some ways it is, in other ways it feels like, I don't know, like quote, spoiling your kids or something like that. But for me, it came from something that my dad used to talk about, the tradition, like, and I don't know, like they came to Canada when he was probably like 9 or 10, I think. And he has these memories of Christmases once they arrived. Because I think it had to do with his parents both worked. So this was back in like the 40s and 50s, but just as an immigrant family, like his mom, they both worked full time and they worked a lot. And they would kind of like Christmas, maybe they got bonuses or something at Christmas time. That must have been what it was. Christmas was this time when they got like everything. So it's not really that he probably got less than lots of kids actually, but it was just, that's when you got, if you were going to get a bike, that's when you got it.
Right.
Got, like, his mom would knit them each a new sweater. He remembers his mom being up in the night, like,
oh
yeah, like, but even like new like pencils.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like a new toothbrush. Like it.
Yes.
Like, but it was just this idea of like this huge abundance of stuff, which again, I know it's like not very well looked upon, but it's kind of, I don't know. We've always just sort of done that. Maybe because I'm not all that gifty through the year, and my kids, so we our kids do get a lot of stuff at Christmas, but it's not all super expensive stuff.
Right.
It's just the fun of like having a lot of stuff to unwrap, but we're a bit
Yeah.
over the top. Like we are now at the point, it's not just a stocking, they get like a Santa sack with the stocking. It's a lot of stuff, but it's a lot of practical stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I love that.
It's the same thing. Like it would be like some of their winter clothes and like
Yeah.
socks and new mittens, and do you know, not like, it's useful stuff.
Yes.
They always get new toothbrushes. Like it's just, so they get some stuff that's on, you know, they've always asked for certain things. Yeah. I have one kid that's like me, just can't think of gift ideas, not really a natural gift giver himself. He's just,
right.
But everybody else has a list.
Right.
Very clear list. And so I do try to balance that, but I do like to just get some stuff too.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just want to say that because I think we have like certain ideas about like what's okay and what's not okay. And I do remember picking up a friend of my daughter's. It was like, it was just a few, it might've been between Christmas and New Year's actually. And I was taking them somewhere. My daughter was probably 10 or 11. And there were three of them. There were two friends. And my daughter and her friend were asking the other friend, like, oh, you know, what did you get for Christmas? And it was like a very, very small, and I could tell my daughter was like, and because it felt like such a short list compared to the way that we do things.
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh, her family would think we were over the top, but we're actually not. It's just the way we do it, right? It's just the way we.
Yeah.
But anyway. So.
Yeah. I feel like, just as you're saying that, I'm thinking, yeah, I think there's judgment no matter what.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of talk around, I could be wrong. I could be very wrong about this, but I feel like there's a lot of talk around like, don't spoil the kids at Christmas. Like kids don't need that much. Even what I said at the beginning, like don't focus on the gifts. It's not about the gifts. There's a lot of, you hear that a lot, but then every year, the people who share what their kids get, it's a lot.
A lot.
Even it's making me, and I think, so I will say, I think you can be judged no matter what. You can be judged as like, oh my gosh, you got your kids so much stuff at Christmas. And you can be judged being like, that's all you got them for Christmas. And so it's just, you got to do what works and what makes sense for your family. Right. And it's a holiday season and no one else should be judging it anyway. But okay, well, I had so many thoughts, so now I'm trying to get them in order. I think we're similar. I think, so when I was growing up, we were very much like that, where we got a lot at Christmas. And I think it was because, I mean, my dad might have got a bonus at work some years. Probably that wasn't as much of a thing, but I think my family didn't have like a lot of money growing up. So throughout the year, we didn't get, we always had what we needed, but there wasn't an abundance, I guess. So Christmas was like, yeah, that's when you got like your new socks, and that's when you got whatever you wanted throughout the year. Not to say you got all of it, but you'd get some of it. And I loved getting a new toothbrush in the stocking and toothpaste and those practical gifts.
Okay, so it's not just me, because
like that is
in their stockings. Okay.
So what's interesting is that's how I grew up, and my sisters grew up obviously that way too. But my family, like with my kids, it's very different. And I have to remind myself of that. And my oldest in particular does not like practical gifts. And my niece is like that too, actually. My oldest niece is like that. Where like, yeah, a toothbrush in the stocking is like almost an insult. It's like, which I at first, because growing up, I'm like, I loved getting a new toothbrush in my stocking. But I think I went a lot longer without a new toothbrush than what my kids do. And so my kids are kind of like, how is this a gift? Like new underwear? Like, but I just get, like they get their new underwear and socks throughout the year. And like, if they need, and I don't think we spoil our kids. Like I don't, but they definitely get more throughout the year than I did. Or like a bike wouldn't be a good example for us because the season, I guess. I got that during like the spring, I guess, or the summer. But Yeah, like I even find myself saying to my kids, like, oh, that's something you could ask for at Christmas or for your birthday. I say that a lot because that was my experience growing up. Like, if you really wanted something, you ask for it. And that just seems normal to me. But even as I say it to my kids now, I laugh at myself because I'm like, well, that's a long time away. And we
Yeah.
give them pocket money, which I didn't have. So,
Right.
sometimes, again, it's not like they ask for something throughout the year and we automatically buy it for them. That's definitely not what happens. Sometimes we do, and often we do give them we don't give them a ton, but they do get pocket money and they save it up and they spend it as they want. And I didn't have that growing up. So yeah, I'm just thinking about how those different experiences can go together. And I do often have to remind myself that my experience growing up is quite different from theirs, I think, when it comes to that stuff. And I still, yeah, I like them having a lot to open Christmas morning. That's another reason why I'm struggling with my one kiddo who doesn't have a Christmas list, because I'm just like, or when they ask for they start getting to an age where they ask for money, and I want to gift them what they're asking for. I really do, but I'm just like, how is that going to feel Christmas morning, especially when I can't fill your stocking with practical stuff because you also don't want that.
I have a money idea because
Okay.
because my kid who doesn't ever have anything so I will do different envelopes with a bunch of different envelopes with different amounts of money in it.
Okay.
Right? So
That's cool.
Now that he's older, it's more like a nice red $50 bill, but as kids, you could do anything so I do a few different things like that. And I just try to watch, like, if there is a particular, like, restaurant that I notice he likes or whatever, I put, like, cause to me, yeah, just to hand a gift card, it feels, but I do them in envelopes and I put a little something on it. I mean, sometimes a sticker, a Christmas sticker.
Yes.
And I will often place them on the tree Christmas Eve so that there are envelopes with his name on them.
Oh, I like that a lot.
You could get even more. I mean, I think if I was even more creative, I could probably do something even more than that. Really, it's just money in an envelope with a sticker on it. But just so that there's a little bit, because that's what it is. It's really not about being, like, greedy or excessive or materialistic. It's just the fun of giving somebody something and of having some things to open and, like, it's fun, right? I feel like, but Ashley, this idea, I love this. This idea of, like, it feeling almost insulting to open up something practical, because I get that. And it's so funny because we have a relative who married into our family, I'll just say that. And when they were hearing this idea of, like, getting and not even things like a toothbrush, like even a bike, it was very much like, they felt that was very insulting and that was not, and I mean, bikes, we've never done bikes for Christmas, but, just, I think, hearing about other people doing that, like a new bike for Christmas, in their minds, they had grown up, there were, like, certain things that parents should provide. And it was like a bicycle is a standard childhood thing. And that the child shouldn't have to wait. But it was just, but see, my dad's reaction would be totally different to that. It was, and when you talk about the practical things like a toothbrush or underwear or socks, I actually think my kids would be, they just love having this time of year that they have a bunch of stuff to start fresh with. And it's not that, I mean, listen, if they needed socks, we got them socks. It wasn't
right.
You know what I'm saying? If they ran out of socks in, like, May, we got socks.
Yes.
Just, even if they have socks, I would still buy them new socks. It's just that idea of having something fresh to start with. I actually think they would almost be more disappointed about that than not getting a gift card or not. I mean, not all of my kids. But I have, like, one in particular who's super nostalgic, and it's like, this is what I get my new socks.
Yes.
And whether you get me my iTunes gift card or not, I can buy. Here's the other thing. My kids, because we've had these paper routes, we don't anymore, but we had paper routes for so many years, if they wanted a new piece of technology, they had access to getting that.
Yeah.
And so I think it took the pressure off stuff like Christmas, because it was just like, if when they wanted something new, they would save up for it. And
Yeah.
our way of supporting that was helping them with the paper route.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
again, I mean, I feel like we could do a whole episode on like allowance and chores and everything like that.
Totally.
It's in, right? So,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The other, so that's very similar to you, kind of what I was thinking around my kids having pocket money. And then even this year, my one kid having a short wish list and my other kid not having a wish list. And I think, like, do you get too much throughout the year? Do you have this? But
should you
fine,
not be
right?
wanting?
Yes. Should you not have some more things that you want? But it's totally not a bad thing. Another thing that came up for me this year that I've been thinking about, that I'm sure I've thought about in previous years, and again, it's probably somewhat related to the kids' ages, is this idea of like homemade gifts. And I stopped doing it, just, I don't know, not because I didn't want to do it anymore, but I used to, for a number of years, for my kids, intentionally home make them something, because I do like creating things. Like I like, I enjoy making things, whether that's like a piece of art, or I can't even think off the top of my head, right? Oh, one time I made these like little like Lego shelves for them, for all their little Lego minifigures. So it wasn't anything elaborate, but it was just the fact that it was something I made that you couldn't just go buy somewhere, and that felt special. So we've had homemade gifts involved in our family a little bit, but it keeps coming up for me this year that I have some like, I don't know, like my kids are, as I've shared, both not really the arts and crafts type kids. And I feel like that's so problematic. It's not problematic, but it's funny how often I'm like, oh, they're just into arts and crafts, because you can do so many things with it. And it's coming up for me around this idea of like homemade gifts, and how they have lots of time in their days, that I just think, wow, like, I guess if I'm just being honest, is like, I wish they would sit down and make gifts for other people. And it's just in my head. I haven't said anything I've maybe suggested like, oh, do you want to make a card, or are there any gifts you want to make for someone? Because I also think it's not just that I want them, to make something concrete that they can give to someone. It's also that I want them to know that they can do that like homemade gifts are special, and that they have something to offer. And because it's so open, right? Like it could be something, like I know Kendall in the community, her daughter does like the little wood carvings, and I think made something for her younger cousin's first birthday or something like, and that's so special, right? And it's a special gift to receive, but it's also, I don't know, like empowering, I think, for people to realize that they have. And it doesn't even have to be something you're really good at. I think maybe sometimes that's a roadblock for people with homemade gifts, is like, I'm not a fabulous watercolor painter by any means, but I still like making paintings for other people because I took the time to do it. I thought about what they might like what you were sharing earlier about taking the time to find something that makes you think of that other person, or you think that they'll enjoy. So I kind of got off track there, but around the whole homemade gift idea is that I just want my kids to, I don't know, feel confident enough, I guess, to recognize that, I don't want them to do it if they don't want to. Like, I recognize that I enjoy arts and crafts. Like, I enjoy the process of making things, and not everybody does, and that's okay. But I'm just trying to think of like, yeah, there's so many, even if they make something on the computer, or like you and your daughter send like the e-cards, right? Like there's just, it doesn't always have to be going out to the store, I guess, and picking something out, although that can be really done in a nice, meaningful way as well. That's just something, it's just an example of something that's coming up for me this year around homemade gifts and my kids.
Yeah. I'm just, as you're saying this, I'm looking through Hayley's post and I would need to look more specifically, because she has so many different resources here, and I'm not clear if there's one about homemade, but I think it would be worth looking through. But so something for me, so I can share a couple of ideas because I'm not a crafty person.
Right.
I like that idea of being able to do something for somebody, or excuse me, So something that I've done it a lot for my dad is set up a favorite playlist of stuff
Ooh.
that sorry, not favorite playlist, some songs that I think he might not have chosen for himself, but that based on, so my my dad's very musical. So he's like a guy, he's got banjos and harmonicas, and he's
Right.
got the mouthpiece where he can play both at the same time. And
Oh,
he goes around and gets these, like, homemade guitars and ukuleles and horns and all kinds of stuff. So sometimes I will hear songs, or I will know of songs, and I'm like, oh, my dad would love the harmonica in that song. Or do you know what I mean? Like this stuff.
yes.
And so I've done stuff like that where I
Hmm.
thought about, like, and you could do that with a parent or an aunt or an uncle or even a sibling, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, they would love that music. And so it
Yeah.
used to be like CDs, right? But now it's playlists. But and he loved that. He
Yeah.
loved getting those. And there's also just some really simple, like, baking you can do, or like snack mix. Like
Oh, yeah.
eggs of, like, just, I know my niece brought she brought to, like, our family Christmas. It would have been maybe 2 or 3 years ago. She had made a bunch. It was so good. Gosh, it was good. And I enjoyed it so much that I think the next year she made me my own. But it's stuff like that. But it's not,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to be like a great baker to make it. You're mixing
Right.
stuff together. And I think there's something, there would have been a couple of things you sprinkled on top or whatever, but it's just
Right.
more the idea of this, like, quick and easy snack that you,
Yeah.
so I feel like there's stuff like that because I think, we've had episodes on creativity where Serial
Yeah.
Kendall joined for one, and, like, we always think of creativity as like a craft or
Hmm.
art, but there's so many different ways that we can
Yeah.
do that, or like a photo,
Yes.
right? And you don't have to be like a photographer, but just a
Right.
photo that kids can take.
Yeah.
They'll get developed and put in a fun frame.
Yeah.
Even I'm just thinking of the minds of younger kids. It could even be of, like, themselves to a grandparent.
Yes. Yes.
A grandparent's is gonna get a kick out of that, I think.
Yes.
So there's just stuff like that
Yeah.
have to be too crafty.
Hmm. No, those are great ideas. I've written them down. Yeah, I've written them down.
Or a movie list or something.
A movie what?
Like a movie list. Like, just
Oh, yeah.
curating something for somebody, right? Like based kind of on their interests.
I think it's exactly what I was looking for, is recognizing, okay, if they're not going to enjoy an arts craft type creation to gift someone, that's okay. But I don't want them to miss out on the opportunity of what I guess it feels like to take the time to, I love your ideas, like the playlist. Absolutely. My youngest would love putting together a playlist for someone. And my oldest would really like the idea you shared around, like, baking, or like the idea of mixing, like making something in the kitchen to gift to someone. And then they have that experience of, like, yeah, taking the time to make the choice, thinking of the other person, and then making a choice that, the kids would think that the person that they're gifting to would enjoy. Taking the time to do that. And then I think even, like, seeing the reaction when they give that to someone, like, it's so, maybe I just have a really special place in my heart for handmade gifts or something. And I think it's a confidence thing for kids too, right? To see that, like, they were able to create something that was, like, really special for the person to
Yeah.
and I'm just thinking, it could be for their friends, but it could be for, like, grandma or their cousins,
Right?
and
Yeah.
the neighbor.
I just thought of another one. Sorry.
Good.
I remember my nephew. This would have been like, I don't know, he was probably about 10 or 11. And he went through, like, it was kind of fast and furious, but for 6 months he got really into memes. And he did a meme for my husband. And how did they do this? My sister just messaged my husband. I remember being there. We were visiting another family, and she's like, "Can you just take a selfie of yourself? Just random, really casual." And so he just took a really kind of picture of himself. He looked, really kind of funny because it was just a moment. And he was like, "Sure," and we never thought about it again. This was probably October maybe. And then at Christmas, he opened it up and there was a hoodie. And it was the picture of him. So it's so funny because he walks around with a picture of himself on
his shirt.
And then there's his face. So there's a picture of him, and I can't remember what the meme said, but when your nephew likes, it was a little bit of a joke toward him. Anyway,
right.
It was very short. It wasn't an elaborate meme, but it was just kind of fun.
Yeah.
So it had one of my nephew's memes below it and the picture of him, and that was a gift from my nephew to him. So it was just,
I love that.
It's my nephew, not even remotely crafty, wouldn't even, absolutely not. Right. So it was just, but that's what he was really into, were these little memes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's such a good example. Yeah. And I like that it's fun. It's funny. My kids. Yeah.
And the first one, the company spelled there was a spelling mistake in it.
Oh.
So that I got that one. So now I also walk around with my husband's face on my shirt.
Too funny.
So it kind of just created a joke, right? It was.
And those are the gifts you remember too, right? Yeah. And I think there's socks now too. I think I see that every year come up too with someone's face or a pet's face on socks, personalized socks.
Yeah, personalized.
Thank you. Because these are really great ideas.
Or
and
a personalized mug with a picture of the
child
or something
I think I feel like I did the mug, pictures of the kids in newer frames. I did that kind of on the kids' behalf for grandparents when they were younger, probably to the point where they have enough. But I like this idea of almost the kids kind of taking that over. And I'm just going to think a little bit more about how kind of humor can come into it too. And my kids love pranks right now. So maybe even not that that's necessary. I don't know if you could turn that into a gift, but maybe a prank gift.
Oh, you could do different things, a little joke book.
Oh yeah.
Do something like that. But I'm even thinking, so this hoodie that they did, this meme. So, my sister was obviously instrumental in it. My nephew didn't have a phone at the time. So it was my sister texting my husband saying, "Hey, can you just take a random picture of yourself?"
Yeah.
And you'd have to know the person well enough to know that they would be comfortable having a random picture on a shirt.
Yes.
And he is, so it's fine. But I'm just trying to think. I think my nephew, so obviously my sister was instrumental in that, but it was his meme, and he loved going to pick up the shirt. You know what I mean? It was he was part of that process of whenever the company called and said, "Oh yeah, the shirt's done, the picture's on it," of just so it can be a partnered homemade gift, right?
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, which totally, I'm thinking if I were to do, my youngest is really into music right now, but would maybe need a little bit of help with making although I think he's kind of making his own playlists now, but maybe even trying to think, help thinking about what the other person might be into. And then my oldest is okay in the kitchen, but help getting the ingredients and stuff like that. But that's a good point. The idea of I certainly don't want to go in having this expectation, go off and make your own. Some kids would, right? I think I have a younger niece. She's really, again, it's more arts and crafts, but just likes creating things, and probably she's 6, could go off on her own and make gifts for a lot of different people all on her own. And that's great. Not necessarily what I was looking for my kids. So I think these are great ideas, and doing them together. Yeah. Just so they have that experience of you can do that, right? It's sometimes that's better than a store-bought gift, is figuring out what could I create for this person and gift that to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's come up for me this Christmas, and that's very helpful around gift ideas. So thank you.
Well, those were just some that I'm sure more will come up, but they were just particularly fun. So
I'll compile a list.
Yeah. Should we move on to Hayley's next point?
Yeah.
Okay, so her next point is keeping it simple. Love that. This is going to be a good one. So I'll just read a little bit about what she says. So she says, while I'm no fan of sticking rigidly to rules, it's true that sometimes constraints can boost our creativity. So I present some gift-giving ideas that might serve as useful starting points for kicking off your buying, making, thrifting list. Okay, so she's actually talking about more gift-giving things here, which is
right.
I just want to go back to something I've heard her say before, though. It's true that sometimes constraints can boost our creativity. So I've heard Hayley talk about this before, and I had never thought about it before, and not even around holiday stuff. I've heard her talk about it as far as like the sometimes almost too much openness can put us into freeze mode, right? Like almost, and maybe we've talked about it with kids, like almost like too much wide open freedom without any suggestions, without any, can almost just like you don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
For people of any age. So I'm thinking about how that works. Whether it's the gift giving part of the holidays, I was also thinking about like in general, how to keep the holidays simple. And so I guess I'm thinking if we keep some of that routine, constraints, I guess, can help us get resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
I guess like the first thing that comes to mind might be financial.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I don't know if you've had these before, but when you're given those like Secret Santa ideas and you're like, oh, what can I get somebody for $10 or $5 or whatever the price limit is? And it does boost your creativity. It does make you go, how can I do this? So I guess depending on where you're at, as far as how overwhelmed you're feeling, sometimes you don't really want to be creative. You just need to get something done.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's fair.
Yeah.
But I guess other times, if you are maybe not wanting to go out and buy one more thing, or you are deciding that, you just don't want to, for material reasons, go out and buy more stuff. Sometimes some of those constraints, whether they're like self-imposed or whether they're just your reality that year. I mean, I even think of like, gosh, we've had, I don't think it was last year, but the year before, we've had a few in the last decade of either like major ice storms hitting. Like there was that huge, like provincial ice storm, maybe 10 years ago, something like that. 2 years ago, there was a huge snowstorm right around Christmas Eve. And it's like, even that, you have these situations that make you go, oh, I guess we have to simplify. I guess we're not going to be able to as easily do all the things or even do the main thing that we were planning. So I think whether it's like finances with gifts, whether it's weather, whether it's just maybe somebody's not well, whatever, like that idea that constraints, I don't know, right? We become more resourceful and creative. So that's what she means by that. But that's what comes like that for me is what I think of.
Yeah.
When I read that sentence, but
no, I like that. And it's the other thing that I think was mentioned was the idea of thrifting too. And I mean, like you just said, sometimes those restraints come in unexpected and, it's just life circumstances, but other times you just make those choices, right? So it could, I know that there's some families who just make the choice, not because they have to, but because they want to, for whatever reason, where all the Christmas gifts are, you go secondhand shopping, you go thrifting, and and you do, right? Like that's when you're going to start thinking outside the box and getting more creative, or, thrifting and handmade gifts or something like that. It's something I think that's kind of fun when you have, when it's a choice. It's kind of fun to think about how that might change the experience for everybody involved. So I like that.
Well, and that reminds me, when you said that, Ashley, I meant to say something when we were talking about gifts, and it's around that idea of like thrifting. And we went through a period of time when the kids were young where we chose for a certain proportion of what we were doing. And maybe I think it was like to my parents, where we chose to like donate or buy something else in lieu of a gift, right? Like,
Right.
Like you could, there's all kinds of different organizations that do that, or sometimes people will choose to like connect with another family, and however you want to do that. And so we chose to do that, not instead of gifts for our kids, but I think we had a conscious decision as a family about doing some of our gifts that way.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about like what was interesting to everybody, like as far as sponsoring something or whatever. And we did that year that's what we did for my parents. I think we did it that. And maybe it was like an exchange. Maybe they did that for us as well. And so it makes me think about thrifting and handmade gifts. I feel like those three I could kind of put in a category where there is something kind of virtuous about that, about thrifting, about sponsoring something, about handmade gifts, that there's like a certain, for whatever your reasons are. But we can kind of be excited about doing that, but then also recognizing that our convictions aren't always going to match where our child is, either personality or developmentally, or right. And not even just our kids, maybe even other relatives. I started to realize we had done that for a couple of years. And then we did have somebody else in our extended family who was like, guys, it's Christmas. No, like, you know what I mean? They were just saying like, actually we could afford to do both. Like, can we also do something? Like, they were missing that. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just fair. I think it's just fair to, again, I feel like this is a whole other conversation about strongly held beliefs that we have, and there's been some other good stuff that people have written on that, but we can have convictions and preferences, and they might be ethical ones or moral ones or whatever, but it's part of living this way with our kids as well, is recognizing that our kids might really want some material stuff.
And that's okay.
And we might want to give some material stuff to other people. Like, we might think, oh, it'd be so fun to do something creative and handmade, or let's thrift that. They're like, I really saw this cool electronic thing that I want to get for, So I just wanted to say that I think there's so much value in thinking outside the box, but our kids might be into it at a certain age, which is what I found. They're kind of like when they were like 7 or 8, that seemed really, that's such a nice thing to do. And then it was like, I'd really like this actually.
And that's fine too.
Okay. Like, that's,
No, I like that, staying open and flexible. The ideas are there. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't fit. And it's okay to change our minds and just take the time to consider the options, right? Not feel stuck.
But I love that you mentioned thrifting, because I do have a relative who loves to thrift right now. And it's like, anytime that I see them, I'm like, well, it's thrifted. Thank you. Like, it's a real thing that they're into right now. Right. So that makes me, I wouldn't have necessarily thought about it. But I think I might, because thrifting takes more effort.
Yes.
And so sometimes if I haven't gotten myself organized, it's just easier to grab stuff. But that kind of reminds me that then for other people, they really like that.
It does. It takes more time. It's become, I would say, thrifting's become more popular as of late. Like, people are getting into it, which is really cool. And it's making me think back to Hayley's title for the post, because I think it also says taking like a kinder path to the festivities, like for us, for our family or something. And then like for the planet, she included that as well. So that's coming up for me, right?
She has, just if anybody's looking, she has zero waste secret Santa ideas. She has ideas of swapping time or tasks. She has homemade gifts. There's
she also has experiences versus like material gifts, which is a really helpful one, I find, when thinking about like for anyone, or like because she has vouchers for a day out, membership to local attractions. I'm also thinking about like subscriptions. So those are sometimes tangible, like magazine subscriptions we've done. But I like those ones. Those types of gifts are good because you use them throughout the year, right? So whether that's a magazine showing up once a month or however often, or a membership to yeah, a local attraction, you would use at a different time. Or my youngest really likes getting gift cards to the movie theater.
Yeah.
And then those are really nice to have throughout the year.
Oh yeah, we've done that. Yes, they are so nice to just grab. We've done that with like even like bowling,
Yeah.
or mini golf, like mini golf.
Yeah.
We do every year too is that we do like like a dinner out as a family after Christmas. But
Oh, nice.
I do each person gets like, so I do it as like a number of gift cards.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if it adds it, like we would just add extra if it doesn't add up. Do you know what I mean? Or if it's left, it doesn't really matter. But it's just, again, they each kind of have their own gift card and then we all use them together to go out to a restaurant as a family. So that reminds me of that too. So.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that. So that's a great idea.
Okay. So anyway, we're back to talking about gifts. Which is fine. But I wanted to so as far as keeping it simple, I always think about, like, Ashley, you were mentioning crafts, and I'm not a particularly crafty person. I always made an effort because a couple of my kids do like crafts. And so I always made an effort to do some, to have some stuff out and do it kind of throughout the season. But I also kept my eye open a lot for, there are quite a few events that often include a kid's craft. Mm-hmm. So what I would notice is even like, so for example, like library events coming up to that time of year will often have, it could just be the craft itself is the activity, but I would find when my kids were younger, like inevitably, if there was like a story time, there would be a craft afterward. And if it was holiday season, it's often holiday related.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes through the whole year, whether it's Halloween or Valentine's or whatever. And so I tried to keep my eye open for those kinds of things just because I tried my best, but I couldn't always fill the cup. Mm-hmm. So it was like, it would be fun to check out what they're doing. And I mean, listen, that's simple as a parent. Yes. You've got the supplies there. You know what I mean? It's an outing and they have supplies there and you're really just supporting your child. Yeah. Or not, depending how old they are and how, how comfortable they are. Yeah. But that was just something I wanted to say about the crafts is like just some of that festive stuff. Yeah. Can outsource that.
Yeah.
Totally outsource that. And I think too, like I would sometimes get overwhelmed because we were a real book. We loved stories and books from the time the kids were really little, like a lot of picture books and stuff. Mm-hmm. So when it came to holiday time too, I could almost get overwhelmed, like a fear of missing out. Like there's just so many different, and some of them are so beautiful and seasonal and like, I don't know. Yeah. I just sometimes would walk into a library because they have lots on display and I'd be like, oh, those are like 8 beautiful books. Yeah. I'll grab those. And I don't mean that I didn't look in them, but I didn't obsess about like, and sometimes I did. Sometimes I would hear about a book and I'd be like, oh, that would be really, and I would, reserve it online or go see if it was there. But a lot of times I would just be like, they've already done the work. They've already done the work. They have displays up. Yeah. Lots of them. Yeah. So, I'm not like wiping out a whole display or anything, but sometimes pretty close, But I would always say, is this too much? And they'd be like, oh no, we've got more, So I don't know. I just think sometimes even those small things, like we don't need to necessarily research a Christmas picture book list. Yes. For half a day. Like literally the librarians have done a whole bunch of work for you. And if it's something that's not for your family, then you're not going to choose it. Yeah. Right. Like,
and that's why it's there.
Yeah. It's a variety. If it doesn't align with what your kids are interested with or your belief system or whatever, well, then obviously you don't pick that book. Yeah. Usually there's enough there. That's like interesting. Yeah. There's stuff I wouldn't, they usually incorporate other stuff. There's usually Hanukkah and a Diwali and there's other stuff that we're not necessarily celebrating. Yeah. But I also don't know the names of those books. Yeah. So, oh, okay. Here's a bunch of stuff about Hanukkah that I can grab, even though right? So
libraries are so good.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that comes to mind for me. But
Yeah, I think that that's actually really helpful. And I hadn't thought about that before, like getting, like in thinking about our conversation today, I hadn't thought about that. And we love libraries. We often talk about libraries. And as you're sharing that, I'm like, yes, of course, the libraries are such a great place to tap into all year round, but especially around the holidays, because you're right, like they take the time and energy to do those displays, put out those crafts, you know, put together programs that you can go to, all the different things, and they're there for the community to use. And libraries are so good at having, like, from my experience anyway, the libraries we visit, is there is diversity. So I think they do aim to have something for everyone, which isn't something you find everywhere. So I mean, I hope that's other people's experiences. But as you're sharing that too, and thinking about ways to, yeah, like just be mindful of like your own energy and maybe what your own strengths are. Like you're saying, like tap into like crafts at the library, because maybe you don't want to be doing the crafts at home, or you are doing the crafts at home, but like you said, your kids want more. But I'm also, as you're sharing that, I was thinking like, yeah, there's got to be other ways that we can tap into that too. Like I have too much craft stuff here. My kids aren't interested in it. So that isn't something I like. We wouldn't tap into that much anyway, especially now outside of the home. But as I've shared here before, I don't love being in the kitchen, which is harder around the holidays because so much of it is around food, and especially like even like holiday baking, which I can get into the holiday baking a little bit. But I'm even thinking like if there was a year where maybe I wasn't feeling great, or I was putting my energy elsewhere, but still wanting the family to have some holiday like goodies, maybe we wouldn't take the time to bake here and I would outsource that. And that could look different ways, right? Like I'm just thinking like even making like you know, local coffee shops have their festive menu, or lots of stores even just hand out candy canes, or like because I know not we don't necessarily want to, like you had such a nice great example of the library and it's free. So I'm trying to think of how, you know, you could do this in a way without spending lots of money too. It maybe isn't as easy to tap into that stuff. And that's just one example, but I'm sure there's other ones too where we don't have to do it all. We can look outside, or maybe it's even another family member, like reaching out to the kid's aunt or grandma, or even a close friend and saying, hey, like there's this opportunity I can't get the kids to, with that, you know, like just thinking about little opportunities that might be there where I'm thinking like not all on us as the parents, especially during years where, yeah, it just might be harder, right? For whatever reason, financially, or like just, yeah, like if you're
it's time wise sometimes, right? So
yeah,
you have like a relative, like, I know my mother-in-law used to set up, and it was her idea. We used to do gingerbread houses there every year, and it was her thing that she wanted to do. So she would get the supplies, and it was something that was like their tradition with her.
yeah,
She would have all these different things that they could add. And I mean, I think something like that, even if you're not like a crafty, I don't know, it's kind of fun to make a gingerbread house, because you choose whatever, like she would have lots of stuff to choose from. But even just if there's someone that will bake with your child, then that can be like, we've had that where I think they used to make with my mom gingerbread a lot, and then we would have it Christmas Eve. So like then they were seeing it again, and so but it was pretty simple. It's certainly simple for me. I wasn't there. It was, you know, but just thinking about like what are those opportunities, not to like push other people into help, but to offer, like, you know, and not that they have to, depending on how old they are, what their interest is, they don't have to be part of like the whole process, but maybe pieces of it. And I was just going to say about like baking, like there are so many, there's so many like community groups and bazaars and bakes this time of year. You're also, yes, they're a little bit more expensive than baking, but I don't know, you're also supporting like people or causes, or I don't know.
Thank you for mentioning that. That's
like just seeing what's in your community, like
so those things pop up a lot.
Sales and stuff like that. They usually have like
or hot chocolate, right? Like
So, I also just wanted to say too, around keeping things simple, and maybe this was part of what I was thinking about back when we were talking about joy. Um, so maybe it kind of ties in that when we think about joy, it doesn't have to be like, so when we're in that kind of planning stage of ideas, and I guess kind of incorporating this keeping it simple idea, things don't have to be, I don't think joy has to mean like high adrenaline excitement all the time, right? It can just be, it can mean a whole lot of different things. Yeah. And it can be as simple as like keeping, just kind of doing something because it feels like it's part of the season for you. So I was thinking about like one of my adult kids who, we've always had this tradition of, it's a very simple tradition. We just walk down to our Santa Claus parade and we invite other people to park at our house because we live close enough that you can walk to it. And then often we would like go out for hot chocolate somewhere, or people would come back here, or it might, excuse me, it might just be us and we would have like popcorn and hot chocolate or whatever. So it was just a very simple tradition. And it's funny because the last couple of years that we went, we didn't even find, so it's a nighttime parade. So it's fun because it's lights and you're out walking with other people at night, which I always, it's just a little bit more exciting or whatever. But the last couple of years, it wasn't even, the parade itself wasn't even quite as good, I feel like, or that's what we decided. And then last year, I don't know, my kids are older now. People are working, people have moved away, people are, people are doing their own thing. And last year, nobody else was home, but my one son, and he came home after work. And I found out later that he walked down by himself to the parade. And I just found that like funny, but like heartwarming, because it's kind of always been the weekend that we start to decorate as well. So I think it just kind of kicks things into gear. So it's like he didn't have anybody to go to with it. He just walked down by himself. And I don't think it was like a riveting experience. He's been to this parade so many times. And as I said, there's a few things it's not even quite as great as it used to be. But it's just more like planning things because we know they kind of serve a purpose for helping us get into the season. Right. And he just tends to be a very nostalgic person. So I think he just felt like, I would just feel better if I walked down to the parade. So it just was funny because if I'd known that he was interested in doing that, I probably would have planned to be home, right. But he didn't say anything about it. I don't think he'd even planned ahead. He's like, oh, I finished work in time. And I was like, I think I'm going to go to the parade because that's what we do. So it's just kind of funny because it's not earth-shattering. It's not. So I think when we talk about these things with joy and with keeping things simple, it can be so basic.
Yeah.
But part of joy, part of that can be simple.
Yeah.
Joyful does not need to be like, yeah.
I really, really like how you brought that up because 100% yes. And I would even say for some, it's just such a good point because sometimes it is the smaller things that some people enjoy even more, right? Like we don't get to decide what other people find, what brings them joy. And with going back to when we were talking about joy lists and the pressure that we can feel and all the opportunities that are out there, I think that that's just such a super helpful point is like, that's kind of what we're talking about. It's like, you find what is interesting and what works for your family and what brings them joy. And it is going to be a number of like smaller or basic things. It's like the bigger events it's what people talk about. And some people don't like those at all, right? Like I've got one kid I was sharing with you with like the parade, for example. Some years we do the parade. Often we don't do the parade because it just isn't something that one kid, but even both kids, they're just not super into it. They don't get a lot of joy out of it. Now, if it had been something that we maybe did every single year, when in the really early years, maybe it would have become that and that would have been fine too. I think for my oldest, it's a lot of standing around in one spot. You're waiting. Sometimes it's noisy. Sometimes it's quiet. It's crowded. There's smells,
It's
a lot of
often
sensory stuff.
quite cold, right? It depends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I think about why they don't care for the parade, like I can understand the reasons behind it. Yeah, so we don't go to the trouble of doing that, and then we fill that with something else. But
Mhm.
I really think that that's so helpful, because when I think about the joy list, like a lot of it's small. Like, um, yeah, we were playing Yahtzee. This isn't really for the holidays, but you could use it for the holidays. We were playing Yahtzee the other day as a family, and I just said like, oh, why don't we have hot chocolate, which we hadn't had yet this season. I said, why don't we have hot chocolate while we play Yahtzee? And my one kid was just like, oh my gosh, yes, this is the best idea ever. But it's
Yeah.
such a simple thing.
It's simple, but it does feel exciting.
It does. And that's often what
Yeah.
our joy list looks like, because the joy list isn't like what sounds, I mean, it can be what sounds fun and exciting and what are the events that are happening. But a lot of it is really even just slowing our mind down and asking, like, I keep going back to like, what do I want it to feel like? So it's, do I want the Christmas music on? Do I want to remember that we're putting Christmas music on? But maybe someone else doesn't want the Christmas music on. So I'm intentionally making sure I'm playing Christmas music when I'm by myself in the car or something.
Mhm.
Is it, I'm trying to think of some other like really small, basic, because I really feel like our joy list, sure, there's some events and stuff on there and some things that could maybe be classified as like bigger, exciting things. But for a lot of it is just like, yeah, I don't want things to be super busy, or I want to make sure I get to see, like my youngest will really want to make sure that he gets to see his friends, because that gets harder during the holidays because it is so busy and our regular meetups aren't happening. So yeah, I mean, that's not even a specific thing to the holidays, but it's just being aware that, oh, we're not going to regularly see them. Let's intentionally see if we can set something up, because
Right.
he will definitely experience a lot more joy if he's not missing his friends terribly. So that's not exactly, I was trying to think of more simple
No, but
ideas
it
for
is.
the joy list, but
All part of the time. It's all like you described at the beginning, like kind of almost looking at it as a calendar. And
yeah.
you're trying to, it does have the potential to be a busier time of year. And so if there are those regular things that are still important, then you're
Yeah.
kind of factoring in like, where can that,
Well,
yeah,
and I think it's easy
that
to kind
fit?
of brush it off and say like, oh, well, like it's just that time of year and we don't get to see our friends as often, but you will in the new year. But my thought is we can have these other plans that my, kiddo could enjoy, like let's just use the parade as an example. But if, he's been really down because he's missing his friends because he's already gone a week without seeing them, is he going to find the parade that joy, like is he going
Mhm.
to get joy out of that? I mean, maybe, but maybe not. So I think thinking about yeah, those things are helpful too. But I really I did want to emphasize what you said about the things on the joy list can be very small and like easy to do and free or inexpensive. Like there's a lot of examples out there where it can be, yeah, just intentionally choosing to have like, okay, every morning over the holidays is going to be a slow morning. We're not going to have
Yeah,
any
yeah,
day where we rush out the door,
yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, kind of like a staycation idea over.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, morning staycation. Not that you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which,
yeah,
and then that's easy, or well, I shouldn't say it's easy. That might not be easy for everyone to implement, but it's stuff
yeah.
like that, right? That it really can be whatever helps you and your family kind of get what you want out of the holiday season, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh no, I think that's so good. I think those are all so good, Ashley. And I'm just looking, does it feel like we have our last one here, which is keeping it kind? Well, keeping it kind and then looking after you.
Right.
And I feel like, so we haven't gotten into a lot about being into, so we do have the episode with Pam Lurkia and Anna Brown, which I'd mentioned at the beginning, where we, I think, are talking much more about some of the things around maybe like friends, extended family, being out places. And so I think rather than getting into that, it would make sense to link that right at the top of this episode, but I would recommend listening to that.
Yeah.
I seem to remember our audio was a little tricky, but I think it was listenable. I think it was, I do remember it being listenable, and I just feel like that's a whole other thing, right? Family dynamics and extended family dynamics, and maybe like work party, if you're like work party dynamics, Christmas party, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of coming at that intentionally, we had some really good conversation about that. So I will.
Yeah, that was a really good
kind of there, because that's a whole other end of things that we haven't really touched on today.
Yeah.
But I did want to say, as far as the idea of keeping it kind and also being, I mean, we've talked a lot about like being thoughtful and kind about gift giving and incorporating everybody's, but then also we talked a little bit about factoring ourselves in and, you know, kind to ourselves as well. And something that I have found, I guess something that I would add to this last one about keeping it kind, I just want to give reference, I guess, to something that's really, I've come to really think a lot about through the Living Joyfully Network. And that's something that Pam Laricchia and Anna Brown and Erica Ellis now co-hosts as well. Anna in particular, I just have learned so much. You know, it's not so much that I learned it as a new idea, but it kind of really helps inform the way I think about things, is just really understanding our choice in things. So sometimes it can feel like we don't have any choices. Like we have to go to the extended family thing, or it has to look this way, or I don't know, we have to do this, we have to do that.
Right.
And just remembering, like, you know, just as much as possible to look at like, where are the choices? So sometimes I've done that, even if I'm feeling like frantic, you know, those last couple days before, and I'm like wrapping and I'm trying to get stuff ready, and just remembering that like nobody put this on me. Like my kids weren't born saying, you need to do all this for us, or you know, my extended family wasn't. It's just so much of it is what I'm choosing to do. And then sometimes our ideas end up being like more work than it seems like they're going to be when we first have them, but that we really do have a lot of choice. You can't choose everything 100%, but even in things we don't have a lot of choice over, there's usually choices within it. Yeah. So even if it feels like, I don't know, we're stranded somewhere with the weather, like we literally don't have a choice, we can, I think living this way, we often become resourceful enough to figure out, okay, but what are the choices we have within this? Yeah. And how can we try to kind of meet people's needs, but also not forget our own, right?
Yeah. So, I'm thinking about, even like a lot of people probably feel like going, you know, getting together with extended family over the holidays is a common experience. And that once you have kids, especially, can be challenging. And we have a whole episode about that, which you mentioned. But what I'm thinking about is, obviously you have the choice in whether you go or not, but a lot of people would say or argue that they don't have a choice, that seeing extended family is tricky, but it's something that they have to do. But I'm just thinking, like, it might help to think about all the choices you have within that. So if you're going to, you know, Christmas dinner with extended family, you have choices, you know, and that would be different for everyone, but maybe like the length of time that you stay, or, you know, whatever it may be, that it's like smaller choices you can have and make in a bigger thing that you feel like you don't have a choice around. The other thing I thought about was an example I have, I think anyway, it goes along with what you were saying. And I have shared this about the whole like not loving being in the kitchen, which is tricky again around the holiday time because so much of it is around food and stuff. But I have made the choice, and it's not been an easy choice. But I don't commit to making like traditional Christmas dinner, which I grew up with. But I also grew up with very stressed out mom because of her feeling like that wasn't a choice and that she had to make Christmas dinner, and she often was not the happiest person to be around. And that's not to be hard on her.
No, hard. Yeah.
Right. Like, you know, that was just my experience growing up. And I just, when my kids were younger, they needed a lot of hands-on, right? Like even the idea of having people over, and it's not a strength of mine, right? So like I'm starting with something where I'm not strong in the kitchen, or at least I feel like I'm not confident in the kitchen, I should say. I don't enjoy it. I know I'll be stressed by it. Now, if we're having people over, I just was like, how am I supposed to accomplish that, make food that other people, I feel okay that they eat it, while having people over to the house and keeping an eye on the kids? Felt like that was not possible. Like, so I actually felt like it wasn't a choice. So I was like, I don't know how I could pull that off. And there was some guilt there, because there's just this like, but I would always say to myself, like, well, if my husband doesn't feel guilty about not taking on the dinner, I'm not going to feel guilty about it either, because he's probably more capable in the kitchen than me, and he's not feeling guilt about it.
And you're both there, and yeah.
Yes. And I just knew, I was like, I will be stressed out. And it wasn't, I didn't want my Christmas to be like that, but I was more so thinking like, I don't want to be that mom. I don't want to be the grumpy mom. But it's like, well, I have to make Christmas dinner. I just thought, no, I don't have to make Christmas dinner. Especially when you get kids to certain ages where like they don't even really like what you serve at Christmas dinner anyway. Yeah. They'd much rather something else. So yeah, anyway, when you were talking about choices, that came to mind, is like, that was a choice that I made. And I still most years make that choice where I'm not the person making Christmas dinner. And maybe I will one day. The kids are getting older now. But that has worked well. And I think some people I know have been surprised when I say that I've made that choice and what it looks like. Yeah.
No, I agree.
But it was a choice.
I don't either, because we travel at Christmas.
Right.
So I don't either. I don't know what I would do if we didn't, we didn't travel. But I might make that choice too, because I do remember one grandparent in particular, and it was just like, it would all start out pleasant.
Yep.
And then there was just a point where, and it's not fun for other people if the person preparing the meal is that stressed either.
Exactly.
So I think everybody, and some people love being in the kitchen, and it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Or their kids love being in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. And so their kids would want to be helping, or they have kids old enough to help. Or
yes.
I mean, even if you have toddlers, it doesn't matter how much your kids love being in the kitchen.
Right.
That might actually be a problem. But yeah. But it's I love that, Ashley, because I think who says that has to look, it has nothing to do with anything. It's just something that there's no, it's tradition. Yeah. So if somebody is feeling attached to that tradition, then they can be part of making that tradition happen.
Exactly.
To be like,
yes.
That's such a great example of just that way of being.
Yeah. Well, and I have to give my mother-in-law props, because she did. She's a great cook, and she did take that on for when the kids were younger, especially, or always offered to have us there. Or I remember one year, I think it might have been for Thanksgiving, not for Christmas. She brought dinner to us, which I was blown away with, because I was like, you prepared this at home and you made it so that you could travel with it. And then she reheated everything here, and and I had some, internal oh my gosh, I feel so bad about this. But I was like, this really worked. She recognizes that it's really not something that I'm able to pull off. And she was able to, and she had done this dinner so many times before, and she didn't have to. We did not ask. But she wanted to. So I think it met one of her needs as well, to be helpful in that way. There's something else I was going to say about that. Now I can't remember, but
there's ways of meeting in the middle of that too. I know on my side of the family now, we do it more as a, when I say potluck, not really luck, not everyone just brings whatever, but literally if the decision is to have the traditional meal, then somebody else is bringing significant portions. So nobody is having to do the full meal.
Yeah.
So I think there's ways of doing that, and it just recognizes that everybody can So we still bring stuff, but it's
Yes.
not on, because also it's a different thing. You can cook or bake the same thing, and sometimes it's easier to take it somewhere else than have your kitchen cleaned again to serve it. Like,
Right.
there's different things, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can do that baking and stuff, but then to get cleaned, like, it's just like,
That's another whole thing. Yeah.
and to host somebody at the same time. So this way you just
Yeah.
comfort of your own space and you take it. So there's so many ways that we can do that. And then I think, like, just to kind of finish off here, Hayley has, she mentions relationships at the bottom, relationship boosters. And she does have, she's some different links from different people, but she has one of her own, dealing with conflict at Christmas, taking a kinder path. And so that would be a good one to take a look at too, because I think, yeah, we can be kind to ourselves, but we can also, when we're all of these things we're talking about, when we're thinking about simplifying, making things work, finding ways to make things work for all of us, we can do that for people outside of our family too. Not have high expectations. Not have high expectations if somebody else is hosting the dinner.
Yeah.
What can we do to be a little bit, is there some way that we can make that easier for them? But I think I go back to that, not judging people's way of doing things and people's traditions and people's timing, and just remembering to try to make it just a peaceful time for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how Hayley ended her blog post getting into relationships, right? No surprise.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was her last, I think anyway, right? Like, I think she wraps up the post with, relationship boosters. And it is such a good reminder that, we're doing the holiday season with other people, our family, extended family, but even like neighbors, our community. It's kind of a shared experience, and it's obviously, different on what different people celebrate, but we're not usually doing it solo. And I think, again, with the holiday season, because it can be more hectic and we can, take on a lot and feel stress and feel certain ways, then we're going to be a certain way with the people that we're connecting with.
Yeah.
Going back to, and again, I don't want to be hard on my mom, but I remember us, so I'm the oldest and I have two younger sisters, and I have memories of us, and we must have been teenagers, I'm sure, at this point, but we would, we got older and we saw that my mom didn't like making the dinner, and she probably made comments, and it kind of seemed like it ruined her Christmas. And I remember it being like, us asking, like, why do you make it? Like, why do it? And I'm sure her response was probably like, well, who else is going to do it? Or you have to have Christmas dinner or something, right? Yeah. Which is, it's unfortunate that she wasn't, for whatever reason, I mean, she would have had her reasons, but the focus was kind of away from the relationships. So it's, no surprise that Hayley, finishes her blog post and touching about relationships, because that's what matters in the end. And holidays can just be a tricky time. So I think, like, not losing focus on relationships, whether it's with our kids or, like with our partners, or, like what you said, like, and being considerate of the choices extended family members make and stuff is just, and again, I think that's easier to do when you can take the time to be intentional, and you've slowed down and you've given yourself time to think about that stuff and consider that stuff. And obviously some people have much more stressful lives, and it's, I don't mean to say like that's easy to do, but I think it doesn't hurt for people to have a little reminder. And it certainly helps me to just not lose sight on what really matters, which is our relationship with all these other people that we're doing the holiday season with.
Yeah. Well, and exactly. And I'll just end with this. There's the conflict end of things, but even if you're not in conflict with people and you're really enjoying their company, then you want to enjoy their company. You want to just, like, simplify, be kind, be gracious, so that you can just whatever, like have some time to play those card games or board games after, like, so that the dinner isn't the dinner or whatever it is, the gift giving, whatever it is, isn't so looming, so fancy and so large. You can't actually just enjoy the time with the people.
I love that. So you can get caught up, right?
Even having a good time, but you're not really present. You know what I mean? Like everything's going okay, like it's smooth, you're not in conflict, but there's another level there of just really enjoying each other.
Especially, you know, people that you don't get to see very often, right? And I do find that is what the kids talk about, and what I remember too, thinking back about the holidays, is those moments where you get to do something really fun, or you're together with your cousins and you have memories of like everyone being together and just playing together. So I love that.
Yeah, like the after party kind of, right? For sure.
The pre-party, the after party.
After party. Yeah, exactly. So, okay. Well, thanks, Ashley. It was good to see you.
Yeah, this was great. Hopefully everybody has a good holiday season.
Exactly. And hopefully there's some pieces maybe they can pull out from this. But I've learned a lot, actually, just different perspectives as we went along.
I'm feeling more ready for the holidays.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
And this ends our conversation today. We hope you found it interesting and helpful. If you'd like to connect further or see additional content, Erin can be found on the web and on Instagram at Everlearning. Ashley can be found on Instagram at Ashley as Mama and Storytime Shelves. And I, Hayley, can be found on the web and on Instagram at Taking a Kinder Path. We'd love it if you'd share this conversation with anyone you think might like it. And if you've enjoyed this episode, maybe you'd consider leaving us a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We're so grateful you made time in your day to listen to us chat. Thanks so much for listening.